Welcome to the Divorce School. I'm Dan Couvrette, the publisher of Divorce Magazine. And for the past 20 years, my firm and Divorce Magazine have been providing divorcing people with information and resources to help them through their divorce. And the divorceschool.com is our newest information source for divorcing people. We're very pleased that you found the Divorce School and are attending today's seminar with Chris Armstrong, who has been a certified relationship coach for 10 years, helping singles and couples achieve equal and authentic relationships. We're going to talk about that. Chris has won several awards in diversity training with special emphasis on women and minority equality. He has published more than 400 articles. You can find many of those articles on Divorced Moms, which is another website we own, yourtango.com, and many other websites. A lot of Chris's writing and work has to do with women achieving equality in their relationships, which is one of the things, again, that we'll talk about today. You can learn more about Chris by visiting his website, which is www.mazeoflove.com. That's M-A-Z-E of love.com. You can also follow Chris on Twitter. It would be Twitter/Maze of Love. Chris, before we get started, I want to point out that our conversation is, I think a little bit groundbreaking when you stop to think about it. Two guys talking about relationships and dating. You know, one would normally expect that one, if not both of the people talking about relationships and dating would be a woman. So, Chris, I know how I got on this call with you. I went through my own divorce 20 years ago and created Divorce Magazine. How the heck did you end up on this call with me and talking about relationships and dating?
So, as you noted earlier, I've done the relationship coaching thing for 10 years now, and I remember getting into relationship coaching when I got divorced exactly 10 years ago. And at the time, I was already an executive in a different part of the world, a different community, if you will. And even as a young executive, one of the things that intrigued me was people in general, how people work together, how we deal with people. And I remember going to a class on cognitive diversity, and that's really just diversity of thought, if you will. But I remember when we were talking about that we were always people who looked like me, looked like, a white, young male executive at the time. And basically, I just remember having a conversation with one of my mentors about why everybody in the room looks like me if we're talking about diversity. And it struck me because his response was, well, diversity is important, but we really only hire the best candidates. We really only promote the best candidates. And I remember thinking, do we think everyone has the same opportunities? Do we think, everyone has the same potential if given the same opportunities for that matter? And the discussion that I had with myself turned into a discussion with him. And to be honest with you, I found it very short-sighted. So I started reading articles and I started asking myself, why in a world where relationships are key, whether it's love, whether it's relationships at work, where relationships are key, does it seem to be that everyone who guides the relationships, guides where they're going, are people that look like me? And thus, I started putting my own thoughts down. What do I think about this? Using some of my experiences as a young executive, asking myself how I got promoted so quickly. And voila, I came up with some thoughts. And I started looking up, how do I do this stuff every single day? I really love the idea of coming up with ways to talk about diversity, to talk about equality, talk about how to get people who don't look like me to be able to show up at the table, sit at the table. And I got into coaching school, went to get my coaching certification because I found out coaching to me was the answer to the question, in the sense that with coaching, you're bringing out who people already are, as opposed to the role I might have played as a mentor, with my executive hat on, where I'm just sort of giving people advice, but it's coming from me. And to top it off, and sort of in the area of those diversity awards you were referring to, I found it very easy to relate to people who did not look like me, because I did not judge them on what I thought they should bring to the table based on what I bring to the table. I judged them on the different strengths they had that I did not, in fact, have. And so as a male, for instance, accepting a diversity award, a white male for that matter, I remember someone asking me in the audience one day, and I think this sums it up very nicely. They said, we respect what you do, but we need to ask, why do you think you can talk to us about diversity? Why do you think you can talk to us about women's issues when you're not, in fact, a woman? And the analogy I used was, you should not always want a circle protecting a circle. So in this case, if a woman's a circle talking to women, they're going to talk relatability. I'm going to be a triangle, perhaps, protecting a circle, and I'm going to be talking about things that a triangle sees that a circle may not see, because the circle's always in the circle. They don't see from outside the circle. And that really resonated with them. And for the next 2 years, I won the same award, which is a People's Choice Award, which means they vote on it. And it was because I was able to bring a different perspective, and I was able to advocate for them from a different view that I saw that they would not otherwise see. And I know that was a long answer, so I will end it there.
That sounds like a good answer, though, Chris. I appreciate it. I've read a lot of your articles, and you talk about authentic and equal relationships. What at the core does this mean to you, authentic and equal relationships?
So I think in an authentic relationship, people can say what they mean and mean what they say, because from day one, they have forged a relationship with their partner on the foundation that both people are who they are. So there are no pretenses. They can have those crucial conversations. Pride does not get in the way of vulnerability. So I, for instance, as one half of a partnership, can have a crucial conversation with my partner that they initiate, and they might find something, observe something that, that they're questioning, that they're not comfortable with. And because I'm willing to be vulnerable, they know that they can go there with me. They know that I will be open to it, that I'll be receptive to it. I think sex lives are better because two people can talk about what makes each other hum. And I think in an equal relationship, there is what I call an even seesaw. So in other words, both partners give as much as they get. It's not one partner sitting at the bottom of the seesaw where the other one's sort of flailing in the air. It's 100 relationships all the way. One of the pet peeves of mine is when people are talking about wanting a 50-50 relationship. I'm like, no, you want 100-100. You want both people to give 100% of the time. But the other thing I talked about is when this is going to occur, if this is going to occur, there has to be awareness. Who am I? Who am I not? Unselfishness and attentiveness, so the willingness to give. And then, of course, vulnerability. I mean, those are just absolute musts. And frankly, from a relationship coaching perspective, I will only promote and harness authentic and equal relationships. That's why I do not call myself a dating coach. I don't help people figure out what to wear, what to say on a date, what kind of food to order, what not to order. I don't want someone to go on a date just to get a second date. I want someone to go on a date, be who they are, and if what comes out of their authenticity is a second date, that's even better.
So if you're working as a relationship coach with people, and you want them to be as open as possible, Chris, I'm sure, and there's feeling of being at risk, though, to be as open as possible. I know there's also the possibility of gain. So how do you kind of help people manage that? Then the risk, I mean, is, just opening up risk. There's no physical risk. There's no imminent danger, but there's an emotional risk, I would think, that holds us back in relationships and being as open as we can. Do you have any advice as to how to be more open or what to look for in that area?
Sure. So if a client says to me, and they will, okay, Chris, I understand what you're telling me. Be who I am, say what I mean what I say, be willing to, give a little, let go a little bit. But can I get hurt in the end? Is that gonna be dangerous for me? And I say, well, that depends on two things. One, do you know who you are, and do you like who you are? That's the first one. And the do you like who you are is the most important piece. So a lot of people aren't willing to be open because, honestly, they don't like what's inside. And not because it's bad, but because they have confidence issues. It hasn't worked out in the past, and they attribute what hasn't worked out in the past to them specifically. So I will have a divorced client who says, I was open with my first husband. I gave my all. I would, emotionally bare every day of the week and twice on Sunday. They'll say, okay, well, that didn't work out for me. They took advantage of me, or they were just blind to it because they were emotionally unavailable. And I'll ask them, does that mean that you were to blame? Does that mean that you being open was the issue, or was it the other person not receptive to your openness? So first of all, do you know yourself and do you love yourself? Because if you're looking at it as you being the problem because of how someone else may react, that would be problem number one. The second question I ask them is, and this really becomes an emotional response for people, is are you willing to be the person that puts themselves out there and may get rejected, not because of who you are, but because who you are might not be what someone else wants. So the first question is who you are from the perspective of do you love yourself because of what may have happened in the past. The second is who you are may not be for everyone. So you may be open and you may put yourself out there and someone may say, got it, not for me. I mean, they won't say that to you, but that might be what they're thinking. I have been rejected several dozen times, but it's not going to change me from being who I am. So oftentimes we're not willing to be open because it's hurt us in the past, or because, we don't love ourselves enough, or because, we've been rejected for who we are. Well, that's going to happen to everyone. Tall, short, black, white, old, young, doesn't man, woman, doesn't matter. So I get that's where I go with clients.
So if we let's talk about dating and divorce. So as you've just said, you've got to get yourself together, so to speak, before. Probably your advice would be before you go out and date. And there's a lot of different opinions and observations about what you should do about that. Can you give us your 2 or 3 pieces of advice that really stand out for you as being the most important things to do about getting back in the dating game?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, know your needs and live by them. So needs to me are non-negotiable traits. They can be physical, emotional, or otherwise, that you have decided must exist in a partner in a relationship. They're not wants. Wants are nice to have. But oftentimes we can subconsciously or unconsciously push them aside because we find someone attractive or charismatic. I tell people, understand your needs, keep them in the forefront. If you don't know what you need and you do not put those in the forefront, you will continue to follow your heart and not your head. And we do that way too much. We see someone that's attractive, that's funny, that's charismatic, that strikes our attention, and that's our heart talking. But we don't sit there and say, but what are ways we can figure out whether they're going to meet our needs? And then we date them for 6 months, and then on the 6 month, 7 month point, we realize, okay, those other things came out. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because some of their traits may not fit with our values. They may not fit with our lifestyle. And this is especially true for people who date after divorce because they've been in a bad marriage for so long, or they've been cheated on or hurt in other ways. And thus it feels good to just jump right in when someone strikes their fancy. Now, sometimes they're not looking for anything serious, especially right after divorce. I'm actually okay with that. I love when clients can say to me, you know what, I just want to have fun. Got it. But if that's not what you want, if you're looking for a relationship, those needs better be present and clear in your mind. The second thing I would say is rediscover who you were before the marriage or during the happy times instead of trying to change who you are after things went sour. There are so many clients of mine that will say, I had to change me. And I'll say, change what? And why? Because something went wrong? Ask yourself, what went wrong? Was it me? Who was I before the marriage? And they'll say to me, well, if I don't revamp, I'm going to end up in the same situation again. Okay. That's assuming that you were the problem, right? So think about it.
Yeah.
You were who you were at the core. There was a you before the marriage. And while we all grow, especially people who got married at a very young age, myself included, at 21, we are growing from a root that was already there. And I always tell people, fight the temptation to uproot. Instead, pull a couple weeds out, a couple things that came inside, came into your life, maybe present things that are around you, or around your persona. Pull those out, things that may not have been the real you. Water yourself, but more importantly, get some sunlight in your life. And I know that sounds cliche, sounds very touchy-feely, but it's true. The best thing someone can do is say, who was I when I was the happiest? Who was I when I was walking down that aisle? Or who was I, the first 2 years of our marriage before whatever happened? Go back to that. You cannot change your core just to guarantee future happiness. You can say, I'm going to rediscover who I already was. And the third answer to me, the third piece to this is you teach people how to treat you, and that is my mantra. I have that in pretty much every article I write, and it is a very basic dating rule. You give as much as you get. You accept only what you need. Remember, there's needs and wants, and you do not tolerate disrespect. And it sounds very simple, but you teach people by virtue of what words and actions you tolerate. If someone only calls you to come over, and when they want sex and you oblige, you're telling them that you're okay with this kind of relationship. If you're the only person that initiates communication, you're the only person that texts, you're the only person that picks up the phone and calls, and it keeps going that way, you're setting the standard. You're saying, I'm okay with that. And then 3 months down the line, you may ask yourself, why don't they ever call me? Well, right. You've set the stage. You teach people how to treat you. So that would be my capper there.
So it sounds like you're suggesting to people that they're not going to completely redesign themselves or reinvent themselves, as a popular term is, that we're just looking to refine ourselves and identify the best of ourselves. And then maybe you physically make a list out of the type of person you're looking for, and maybe got one column, here's what I'm looking for, here's absolutely what I'm not looking for. So you kind of get those thoughts out and in front of you. Would that be helpful?
I think refine is a lot better word than I came up with. So yes, you hit it on the head. And I think the lists are helpful because they're memory joggers, and they're also it's just an exercise, and it could sound very academic, but yeah, what are the looks that I'm looking for, and they are important. People use words like shallow and and say, well, gosh, I don't want to be that person who says I need somebody who is this tall or has this body type or whatever.
Right. Maybe defining it as because you talk about needs and wants. How does somebody go? What's the process for discovering your needs and wants? I'm assuming working with you as a coach would be helpful, but is there also other ways that they can dig into those needs and wants?
Oh yeah, no, and I would say they absolutely don't need me as a particular coach. It's sitting down, and to me there's an easy process, because I will talk to people and they'll say, well, here's my needs, and they'll be all over the place, and I'll say, okay, let's start with looks. Tell me what you need in the looks department, and don't be shy. Chemistry is important. You can't invent it. Don't be shy. Now, tell me what you need in the lifestyle and views department. In other words, politics, religion, income. Do they smoke? What are their drinking habits? And then the third is just going to be character traits and behaviors. What's their communication style have to be? Honesty and kindness are sort of easy to come up with, but do you want someone who's more ambitious? Do you need someone who's a social butterfly, or would you prefer someone that's reserved? So yeah, in the looks department, in the lifestyle and views department, and in the character traits and behaviors, just sit down one day and say, what do I need in those areas? Needs being non-negotiables. If I do not have these, or if they do not have those traits, we're not going to last. Sleep on it, look at it the next day, walk through it, challenge yourself in a couple of areas. I've had clients who say to me, I need someone who is 100% honest. I said, okay, that sounds pretty basic, but I would go through a couple of questions with them. And I would say, so if you catch that person in a lie one time, is everything done? Well, it depends on what they're lying about. Okay, so we're fine. Ask yourself what you mean by 100% authentic. Yeah, go through that. And the thing about it is, once you come up with that list, the non-negotiable has to stick. It can't be, well, that was a need, but he's really funny and he's really tall and he's really good looking. So the fact that he doesn't meet me at my ambition level is actually not as important anymore. Okay, then it's not a need. It's a want. Or it is a need, but you're settling, or you're putting your heart before your head, because in the moment he's really funny and he's really this and he's really that. That's the biggest struggle clients have with needs and wants, is execution of it. So.
Right. We want that warm and fuzzy feeling, and we kind of lose sight of making absolutely certain that this person is right for us. Is that just me, or is that an ongoing issue for us as human beings when we're dating? We get that feeling, we get that charge, whatever it is, when we meet the person, when we're talking to the person, and we kind of overlook what we might think of as being our higher priorities if we were thinking straight?
I think you're spot on there. That's the head and the heart. Your heart is 100% in, your head might be 50% in. And you need to balance the head and the heart. And we do not do a very good job of that. Almost no one does. It is, even for relationship and dating coaches, people I've talked to who do what I do will say the easiest thing for them to do is to get sucked in with the heart, and then the head catches up later. But the worst part is when someone's heart is so invested, and then 9 months later, when their head's finally wrapped around the situation, there ends up being a nasty breakup, and they say, why did I waste my time? Because at the beginning, you did not put your head and your heart equally.
Right. I guess this ties in because you've mentioned talking about relationship authenticity. And when you mix that in with dating, what are some of the things that you would tell people to be mindful of then?
So do not audition. When we audition for a role, we play someone else. Oftentimes, dating coaches will talk to people about what to wear, what to say, what to laugh at, and countless other things that at the core are telling people to be someone that they are not, just so they can have a successful date. My view is that it is not a successful date if you're being someone else on that date. Think about it this way. So in 6 months, is the real you going to come out? Of course it will, right? I am doing what I can, if I'm a typical dater, to put my best foot forward, to act like I'm enjoying things I otherwise wouldn't enjoy, and eventually they're going to know the real me. So if it's going to come out, when should it come out? At the beginning, of course. And if we put the roles in reverse, would I or would you want to know that the person that you have fallen for was a different person that was auditioning for you the whole time? I don't want someone sitting on the other side of the table being someone else that I might be falling for, only to realize that's not really who they are. And from my perspective, divorced clients of mine have had a harder time with this than single clients because they can feel as though the marriage went wrong because of something that they did or because they do not want to go through another bad relationship. So they can say, gosh, I can't do this again. I can't be in another, 9-year relationship that ends, or, that went haywire and I had something to do with that, so I have to be someone else. And it goes back to the rediscovery versus change. So instead of trying to be someone else or to try harder, just be. And it may take people several dates to find the one. I mean, the average person is on an online dating site for 10 months.
That's a lot.
And that's because, for goodness sakes, it is hard to find people that you're actually physically, intellectually, and emotionally compatible with. But that does not mean that we should try to play a different puzzle piece than we really are just to try to fit someone else's puzzle.
Right. Because
at the end, it will not work out. So that's what I would say to be mindful of when we talk about authenticity in dating.
So when you're being authentic as well, let's say I go out and I date somebody, and I love skiing, and they've never skied before, and they're better off to say, I've never skied before, it's always scared me, but I'm open to giving it a try, or no, you're not the one for me because you're a skier and I've always had no desire to ski.
So that's a very interesting and a very good question, frankly, because I would say there's one of two answers. The first answer is, three answers. Answer one is we don't tell them we like skiing if we don't like skiing. The second answer is there's nothing wrong to me with saying, I've never tried it before, but I'm open to it. The only time answer three comes into play, which is, they're not the one for me, is if skiing is a need that you have. And I'll give a parallel. One of my needs in dating is I need to date someone who loves music. Not someone who likes music, but who loves music, because concerts are so important to me. And I do a song about it on Facebook every single day, literally, that it's such an important part of my life. So there may be someone using skiing as an example who says, my family and I hit the slopes 3 weeks out of 6 every winter.
Right.
It may be, so a need for them might be someone who likes skiing as opposed to a want. So if it fits the need, if it fits your needs in that lifestyle category, then yeah, if someone's just like, gosh, I've never done skiing, I'm terrified of it, or I've done it, it bores me to tears, and it's a need, then you probably should not go on a second date with that person. And by probably, I mean you should not. If it's not a need, if it's just a want, then sure, just be honest. I'm not not really a big skier, or I've tried and I didn't really like it, or I've never tried but I'm willing to. Is it a need or not? Is sort of I'm at with that.
So I'm a snowboarder, Chris, and my wife knew this when we got married. We've been married for 19 years. She really saw it as an opportunity for me to be a snowboarder because the thing she loves is to be on her own, to have her own time.
Right.
And so it really works well for her that I go away. That I go away snowboarding and I don't have to be in her life for 3 days when I go snowboarding. So being authentic, as she was right from the beginning, saying, I'm from Hong Kong, never skied, never want to, don't like being cold. You go to it. Have fun. Enjoy yourself. Because I take my 2 boys with me skiing, and we've done that snowboarding for 20 years. So being authentic, as she was right from the get-go, really created an opportunity for me because I didn't want to have somebody dragging behind me who wasn't as good as I am on the snowboard, to be honest, and have to go through that pain of teaching her and coaching her and cajoling her to come to a ski hill that she didn't want to be at. So that's an example, I think, for you when if you're authentic, well, it can work out at a time when you think it may not work out, right?
Absolutely. No, I just got married in January, and one of the things my wife is not really big on, that I'm big on, is going to sound funny, role reverse. I'm huge on clothes shopping, like I love. And I always knew she didn't care for it. She didn't like shopping in general, doesn't like the crowds. So I have no problem going shopping, knowing she's not going to come along. Because from day one, she said, okay, when you go shopping, I will do something else. I'll go running or whatever. So it doesn't have to be this awkward thing where I think, well, that she doesn't want to spend time with me, or this awkward thing where she's with me, but like you said, she's just sort of dragging behind. That was a perfect use of words.
Right.
So, yes, I relate, and I love the authenticity there.
So what do you see as being the biggest mistake, or maybe there's a number of them, for divorcing people that they make while they are dating? And I guess the follow-up to that would be, do you have any advice to give someone that is having a hard time forgetting their ex-spouse? Maybe they bring them along on every date, mentally, not physically. So, what mistakes are they making, and what do you think we can do to help them?
The biggest mistake I see divorced people making during the dating process is they're going into a specific date with an end state in mind. So it might be Carla going on a date and with Chad, but she's talking to Brittany a couple hours before, and she's like, I really hope this, or I really hope that, I really hope we end up going dancing. I really hope if it's, third date, fourth date, fifth date, we end up going back to his place. Or to the other extreme, it could be, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is not going to work out. My marriage was a failure. This is not going to be any different. Or I know tons of friends who've done this online dating thing and it really hasn't worked out for them yet. Why bother? So they have this end state in mind instead of seeing where things go. So I put those into sort of 2 categories. Category 1 is a desired end state. So what is my desire at the end of this? Is it to go dancing? Is it to end up at his place? Or a predictive one? This is not going to go well. So you put a prediction out there before it even starts. But it can sabotage the date and a potential relationship because, A, you're not going to be yourself, really, because you're going to have this cloud in the back of your head, whether it's a whether it's a bright cloud back to that desired end state, or it's a dark cloud back to that predicted one. And those things are going to determine what you say, how you act, how you react to how they act. I've heard clients talk about how they went on a date, and the entire time they were just thinking, I hope he does this, or he did that, what does that mean? That's exactly what I thought was going to happen. And they create outcomes. They make words out of nothing, or they misread what someone says because, again, their mind is clouded. So to me, that's the biggest mistake. And it's more prevalent for divorced people because they've been through the ringer. So they can have that predictive end state, or they create a connection so much that the desired end state is at the forefront. So I have a client, for instance, who says to me, my husband and I didn't have sex for the last 2 years of our marriage. Well, right. That means when she goes on a date, and this happened to her, she specifically shared it with me, that when she goes on a date with someone that she finds physically attractive, she's automatically thinking, gosh, I hope this ends, with sex, frankly. Nothing wrong with that. People have needs, got it. But if that guy does not go there, or if he doesn't, if he isn't as touchy-feely as she is, she's going to think one or two things. I'm not attractive. This must be why my husband didn't touch me for 2 years. Or this isn't going anywhere. I need I need a quicker, connection. So it's just self-sabotage. And I think the second question you asked was, what are things I would tell someone who's having a hard time forgetting their ex, their spouse? So I always tell clients not to forget. You're not going to forget, at least not intentionally. I mean, if I sit there and say, I have to forget, Summer, who was my ex-wife, or if Brittany says, I have to forget Steve, got to get him out of my mind. She can't simply erase Steve. She walked down the aisle with him. She was with him for however many years she was with him. And trying to forget them will keep them closer because you will obsess about trying to forget them. It's like telling a jury to disregard evidence. They're not going to disregard it. They're going to, in fact, it's going to be at their forefront. It's proven. Instead, remember who you were before them and who you are after them. This is about you, not about them. So you're not there to forget them, but make your frontal lobe, that forefront feelings and thoughts about you. There's a popular phrase, and I mentioned it earlier, that you must love yourself first, and I cannot stress that enough in this context. Your spouse may have put you through the ringer, or the marriage may have been going smoothly, and they just sort of ended it. And in the latter case, a lot of people do have a hard time forgetting, and in fact, in some cases, they hope their spouse takes them back.
Right.
I tell them, realize that where that ends, meaning the marriage, you begin again. Sounds cliche, sounds touchy-feely. People have to make it about themselves, about you. And another piece I would add to this is, in some cases, people aren't ready to date right after divorce. Because if I have gone through a divorce, male, female, old, young, doesn't matter, and I am obsessed or I am still upset or angry about what happened in my marriage, I am absolutely not ready to date. Because my feelings are going to sabotage any dating I go on. They're going to hurt the person who's on the other side. Or I'm going to jump into things sort of haphazardly without, again, thinking about their needs and wants. And I will say again what I said at the beginning. It may simply be that someone isn't ready to date after a divorce, but that they're ready to, frankly, have fun. And I have to tell clients all the time, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying, I am an adult. I can make my own decisions. And if I want to have a consenting, casual relationship with another adult, great. Protect yourself, obviously. Say that all the time. But darn it, that is a lot better than convincing yourself that because you have needs, physical might be in this case, than convincing yourself that the only way to get there is to date when you're simply not ready to date. So you're not going to forget your ex, at least not don't try intentionally, but think about you. Put yourself first. Begin again with you. And if you're not ready to date, think about you in other forms and fashions.
Right. Great advice, Chris. I really appreciate the time you've taken to talk with us at the Divorce School. If you want to learn more about Chris, please visit his website. It is www.mazeoflove.com. And I highly recommend that people also listen to some of our other Divorce School sessions on legal, financial, emotional, relationship. We cover all the topics that are of interest to divorcing people. If you're not already on the divorceschool.com listening to this, please go there and you'll find many more podcasts. Thank you for your time, Chris, and thank you, folks, for listening in on our seminar. Have a great day and have a great life.
Thank you.
Thank you.